Well, good evening. My name is Clark Morris. I'm the Vice President for Advancement here at Jewell College, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We are thrilled and excited about our new Center for Faith and Culture, and we are just bursting at the seams to share with you everything we can about the center, and we are thrilled that you've joined us tonight. The center was created by the inspiration and also a lovely gift from Phil and Patty Love. The center was modeled after the Yale Center for Faith and Culture, really based on the experience that Phil and Patty had had working with Yale and their Center for Faith and Culture. Now, our president, Elizabeth, in working with Phil and Patty, really just loved and nourished this idea and had the suggestion to them that we really should name the center after them and call it the Love Center. But both Phil and Patty felt that that might give the wrong impression to our students on what we were trying to build and to accomplish. Tonight, you're going to have a chance to meet the leadership of the center and hear about our initial work. And as we go along, if you will, at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat button. And if you have questions, you can submit questions to us. And at the end of the session, after you've met the leadership, we will try to address as many of those questions as we have time for. So if there are topics or any questions that you have, please do put those in the chat. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the director of the center. That is the Reverend Dr. Craig Walls. And so I'll turn it over to Craig. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Clark, for the introduction, and appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today and to share a little bit about the center. I came on board with the center at this past January, and tonight the three of us are each going to talk and share a little bit about what we're working on. But I thought it would be appropriate to just start, and we're not going to take too long tonight. And again, as Clark said, I think it won't be in the chat, but in the question and answer, the Q&A, that you could put any questions, and hopefully at the end we'll have some time to address some of those issues. But still today at Jewell College, every first year student that takes their first year class reads Augustine's Confessions, and as part of that, I was thinking about one of his more famous phrases is that Augustine writes in that book is, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." And the center, again, drawing upon the work of the Yale Center for Faith and Culture and the work of Miroslav Volf, is about how do we envision a life of flourishing? How does a life of following Jesus, a life of the Christian faith, lead to a life of flourishing and a life of hope and of healing and wholeness and all the things that we hope to bring to our students? And so with this generous gift from the Loves, we began work on visioning the center. Right now, and the other thing I want to say is that the center is going to evolve over time. Things will work and things will not work. And we hope that it will grow. We're confident that it will grow as we move forward in our work. Right now, we have three pillars, three focuses that we are laser focused to get up and running. The first thing are our educational courses. We'll call our personal educational flourishing courses. And this kind of goes to the vision of the Loves of these courses that are taught at Yale on what the good life looks like, a life worth living. And Dr. Benz is going to share a little bit more about those and how they came about. But that is the first thing we focused on. And I began in January. And so we just launched in the last 2 weeks these courses with our 4 church partners. We have formed partnerships with 4 congregations in the KC metro area, which we hope to expand as we go forward. But those are Country Club Christian Church, Village Presbyterian Church, Grace and Holy Trinity, and Second Baptist. And we are teaching courses at each of those congregations. We have professors that are teaching those that raised their hand and said they wanted to help participate in this. And we also have local church pastors teaching their 4-week courses on what does a good life look like in those 4. So we are teaching those classes. We're excited to share that, again, actually tonight after we finish this, I'm going to go to the second class. Our first 2 classes we've had over 22 people in each of those classes. So far, I think we've had 68 people sign up for classes and have registered for over 105 classes. So we really are excited about where we are and the start we have on the flourishing classes. So that's the first pillar. And we're always going to have those. And those are for the community. They're meant for outreach, community, greater Kansas City area. We actually have one online that we'll be working on too. And hopefully we can expand those into the future. The second thing we have are what we call congregational flourishing. That has to do with some of the work that I did in my previous life. I was a 20-year pastor. I was a church planner and worked in congregational ministry. So we work with congregations to help them think about their mission and vision and values and how they can create a flourishing congregation. And so we've done some work already, even in these first few months, with Community Christian Church here in Kansas City as one example. So those are the first 2 pillars, educational flourishing, congregational flourishing. And the third pillar, and probably the thing that we're most excited about, I don't know if most, but extremely excited about, is what we call our student flourishing. And that's to help our students think through what is it to live a life of flourishing? What is it to live a life of faith and to nurture our spiritual life? And how will our faith life be impacted by our career, our vocation, our profession? And so we're gonna focus on that. We're creating this program, what we call Student Flourishing Fellowships. When I went to college, and I didn't go to Jewell, but I went to a place very similar to Jewell. Those of us who were interested in ministry, we went through a kind of a pre-ministry program and majored in religion and majored in something else. But what we've kind of want to turn that on its head just a little bit. And if someone's interested in professional ministry, that's great. And we will support that. And we want them to be a part of the program. But the program is specifically designed for young people that take their faith seriously and that really want to examine, what is a life of faith going to mean lived out in my life, in my career, in my vocation, in my profession. And so we are asking fellows to come here and to major in whatever they want, whatever they're passionate about, and then to minor in faith and culture. And this fellowship program is going to have 2 aspects or 2 parts to it. One is the educational side, and Dr. Benz will share more about that. And then the second part is the discipleship side, the spiritual life side. And so we're going to put these young people, these fellows, it's going to be a competitive program. We're going to put these fellows into a small group and have them over a 4-year period live through and grow in that small group, and also, again, vision and imagine and think through, what is it to live a life of faith? What is a life of flourishing going to look like as I venture out into my life? And so those are going to be the 2 focuses of that fellows program. We hope to get that up and running by next fall. We're recruiting for it this year. And so if you know of students that have an interest in faith and want to participate in something like that, those fellows will also help imagine our student ministries, our spiritual life here at Jewell. And Melissa will share more about that here in a moment. The other parts of the center are, we're for example, we're trying to add some worship components. There's going to be we're actually about to start a new student worship service, and I'll let Melissa share that. But for example, we're having homecoming worship next week. It's going to kick off homecoming. It's going to be a time where we remember those who have passed in the previous year, who are part of the Jewell family, alums, staff, and faculty, and a time of remembrance. And so we're excited about that. We continue to be a part of City Come Again, and we look for other worship opportunities as we grow. The other part is we look to do sort of like seminars or educational events outside of the classes, and we'll continue to live into that and to grow. I imagine doing a sacred arts event, for example. It would be great to be able to do that each year and to do various topics. Some of that takes money, and so we are looking for those who want to raise their hand and be supporters of this program, to support through scholarships some of these fellows programs, because we want to take that burden off of our students. So we're looking for fellowship supporters. We're looking for supporters that want to support this overall new venture in ministry. So with that, I think that's a good enough overview. I want to turn it over to Dr. Brendon Benz. Dr. Benz was in this from the beginning, helped to vision this work, and is the professor of history and religion here at William Jewell. And the other thing you just need to know about Dr. Benz is he's the professor that all the students want to take. His classes are always full. He's an excellent teacher, and I think that's all you need to know about Dr. Benz. So I'm going to turn it over to him to share a little more about our education and our student flourishing programs.
Well, thanks, Craig. I appreciate it. The kind words. I'll drop the check off tomorrow morning. Thank you all for attending and your interest in our program in the center. We do, as Craig said, have some exciting things going on. I'll just cover two of those elements that Craig sort of introduced. The first is the personal flourishing or personal education classes. It was a really exciting process, because as Craig and I were thinking about this last spring, trying to figure out what flourishing courses would look like from a Jewell perspective to set ourselves apart from the Yale Center for Faith and Culture. And we had the idea of asking our faculty colleagues to develop courses that explored the intersection between their lives of faith and the disciplines in which they teach. And we were excited when 15 plus faculty were enthusiastic about participating in this program and developing courses. So, for example, our two physicists on staff, Dr. Baker and Dr. Shearer, are going to teach courses on their life as physicists, their view of the cosmos, and how that contributes to their life of faith. If you want to see a full list of the course offerings, you can go to the Jewell website. The easiest way to access it is www.jewell.edu/faith. And you'll see under personal flourishing, the button there, that gives the list of all 15 courses. As Craig said, we already have a large number of people who have signed up for the courses, and the courses run all year. And again, the hope is to offer a specifically Jewell perspective, along with the participants from the host churches who are engaging in the process. The second component that Craig discussed, the Fellows program, where we hope to recruit students to engage in this 4-year program. And as Craig said, the mission is to have them really take seriously what pursuing a vocation looks like as a person of faith, or how does their faith make them better as a nurse, as a lawyer, as a teacher, a doctor, an economist, a business person. And so in order to pursue that, we have both an academic side and a discipleship program. I'll focus on the academic side. There are at least two components. The first is that we're currently developing a minor in faith and culture. And that minor will consist of taking 5 courses that are part of our sacred and secular curriculum in the core curriculum. And it's been exciting to develop this program. We've been able to recruit faculty members from the community to teach at the center as fellows of the center, that is, faculty fellows of the center, who are leaders in faith organizations. So, for example, we have Dr. Vernon Howard, who is the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, who teaches on Black freedom struggles. We have the imam from the Johnson County Islamic Center, who is currently teaching a course on Islam and the Muslim experience. We have Father Reeb, who is the chaplain at Pius X. He spent 4 years at one of the pontifical institutes in Rome and is now back. He is actually a graduate from William Jewell College and the former president of LCA. And he's teaching a course on Catholicism and freedom. And we're working on recruiting a rabbi and also someone who is able to teach Hinduism and Sikhism, hopefully someone who was raised in that tradition. So part of this program is to both introduce our students to other faith traditions, but also help them to explore more deeply the Christian tradition. So they'll all be required in this minor to take a course on the Bible, and then required to take a course that will be entitled Power, Tyranny, and the Good Life, which really takes a biblical approach toward power and relationship building in the pursuit of a life of flourish. The other element of the Fellows Program is what we might call co-curricular, outside of the classroom. So like an athletics team, they'll be required to meet outside of the classroom for several hours a week to continue to pursue these questions of what a life of faith looks like as they pursue their own vocations. And one of the elements will continue to be an academic element. So all of our incoming students are required to take the responsible self. As Craig mentioned, we read Augustine's Confessions in that course. We also read John Stuart Mill's On Liberty, Consilience by E.O. Wilson, who is a sociobiologist and argues that reality is just the material world and we are but nothing but our genes. We also read The Joys of Motherhood by Bucci and Macheda, and finally the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the sacred Hindu tradition. And in our conversations with students at Jewell, one of the things that they really desired was to be able to talk about these books, talk about these ideas, and wrestle with them in a way that's faithful to their own religious tradition. And so that's one of the academic components that we envision for our fellows. How do we go through responsible self together and ask questions of these texts in dialogue with our own faith? Another component will be pursuing interfaith dialogue, establishing a better understanding and exploring a better understanding of other religious traditions, with the hope that having that understanding, we can operate in a more faithful and a more fruitful way in our lives after Jewell. So how am I a better teacher? Or how can I be a better teacher if I understand Islam when I have, for example, refugees from Afghanistan coming into my classroom? How can I be a better nurse if I understand the Eastern religious perspectives when I encounter someone who adheres to that in my profession? So those are just a few of the ideas. And as Craig said earlier on, we are brainstorming and we are excited about working with others in the community to share with us ideas of how we might better improve this program and how you could see this program impacting whatever place you are in the Kansas City community or wherever you might be. So as Craig also said, there's a discipleship program or component to this program as well. And so in order for this part of the program to be sufficiently explained, I want to introduce Melissa Bryson Dowling, who we are really excited to have on campus. Melissa is a 06 Jewell graduate. She took her Master's of Divinity from Central Baptist Seminary here in the Kansas City area. And I'm excited to share that she is our first female chaplain on the Jewell campus. So Melissa, if you want to take it away. Can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you, Dr. Benz. It's so nice to be with you all this evening, and just hearing Craig and Brendon talk about the center has me excited about it all over again. So I hope you all are getting excited too. My background after graduating from seminary, I went into hospice chaplaincy, and moving from that demographic to this demographic of working with college students seems like a bit of a stretch, until I thought about the conversations I had with hospice patients, which were about, did I live a meaningful life? Did my life have purpose? Is God happy with how I have conducted myself? Those types of questions. And I thought, how great would it be to have those types of conversations with the students, 20-year-olds. Like, let's talk about that now, so that when you do get to that point in your life, when you are facing the end of your life, that you can look back and say, I was intentional about having meaning and purpose, and having a life that was a flourishing experience, not only for myself, but for my community, for my world. So that is what I am really excited about, as well as the fact that I get to serve students of all faiths. So I will be working with the fellows. I will be helping with the discipleship portions of those areas. And then also I will be helping the fellows lead different spiritual exploration, maybe services or field trips or things like that, or small groups, small Bible studies with their peers. So help them learn how to be leaders within the Jewell context, therefore preparing them to be leaders outside of that context. And like I mentioned, all faiths. So I'll not only be serving the students in the fellowship program, and as well as the Christian students on campus, but also the students that don't identify as Christian, or maybe spiritual but not religious, or a different world religion, or agnostic, or even atheist. We have the opportunity to still have those spiritual exploration conversations. And my experience in hospice has really taught me how to do that, because as a hospice chaplain, I did serve people of all faiths and everything else I just mentioned. So I did build relationships with the other faith communities in my area, and I worked with the other clergy. I worked with imams and Catholic priests and rabbis to make sure that my patients were getting the spiritual services that they needed. And so I can do that with these students. I can give them every resource I have, and I'm really excited about that. And the students seem to just be soaking it up. I started on July 25th, so I've only been here really for a couple of months and only a few weeks with students on campus. And all of the students I have interacted with have really responded positively. So a couple of areas that they have expressed need is processing the responsible self class experience outside of the classroom. The responsible self course started, I believe, in 2000. I took it in 2002, and it is pretty consistently the same. And so I've gone through that experience. And so now I get to talk to students about their experience through it. And I have created a group for students. It's called the Reflective Self. And we've met 3 times now. And it's a supportive place for students to process the core curriculum. So not only the responsible self course, but also their sacred and secular courses, or really anything academic that is bumping up against their faith or their spiritual life, and they want to, dig deeper and really flush that out. So hold on one second. I think maybe I'm supposed to do something else with my screen. Can everyone see me and hear me? Can you send me a chat, maybe?
Yeah, we're following you. You're good.
You're good. Okay. Okay. So I got a message that it wasn't working. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So let me back up. The Reflective Self is a group that I have started, and it's been a really great conversation so far. It's been very casual, but yet very fruitful. And so we'll continue to do that. We've had a variety of students from a variety of backgrounds show up for that. And so that has been really good. I've also established what I'm calling chaplain chats. And so it's an opportunity for students to set up a time, an individual time with me. We can grab coffee or, meet in the office if they want a little bit more privacy, or in the cafeteria if it's during their dining time, and just talk about what's important to them and how I can serve them and how I can support them and what they're doing. So far I've had 10 of those, and they have all been just really wonderful. Jewell continues to have exceptional students, and it has been just really wonderful and fulfilling to get to know them. And they've also been sharing with me a desire to have a worship service on campus. And so we are actually launching that. Next week, we have our first planning meeting. And then October 18th will be our first worship service. And the students have they've filled my inbox with asking to be part of it, which is just really exciting. And we're going to start out in Grand River, and we'll see how it grows and where we go from there. There are also a couple of organizations on campus that already existed before I came in. So one of them is Pursue, which is a Christian organization that does a Bible study weekly. Another example is the Nursing Christian Fellowship. And so I have met with these student leaders and continue to want the students to be the leaders of these things. And I'm just coming up and supporting them and helping them continue their mission and do what they want. And in that same vein, the worship service will be student-led. And so I'm excited to empower those students to do that. And I think it's going to be a time of renewal for Jewell in a lot of ways, and just really looking forward to that. So I think that I've covered everything I need to do. So I am actually going to turn it back over to Clark. He's been monitoring questions, and I think we're going to do a little question answer session. So thank you.
So thanks, Melissa, and thanks. We have actually a number of questions that have been entered, and as Craig rightly pointed out, put them in the Q&A, not in the chat, but put them in the Q&A, and we'll start addressing those questions now. So I'll go right back to Melissa, because we have a question about Jewell's tradition of having a chapel service, and the question is around our previous practice of having a weekly chapel service, which we haven't had for a few years. And actually before that, we had a daily chapel service. So is what you're mentioning, this worship idea, do you see that as maybe a way to sort of replace or enhance that tradition?
Yes. So I was not aware that there used to be a daily chapel service. That must have been before my time. So I was a student when we did have our weekly chapel services. And as time has gone on, those services were not widely attended. The participation had dwindled quite a bit. And so it was kind of in that place where do we continue to do it? Do we not? And then COVID hit. And of course, everything got canceled. And so chapel kind of went away with that, and we have discussed our opportunities around that. And after talking and spending some time on campus, it's pretty clear that the students want an evening option. So as of right now, we don't have plans to reinstate that daytime chapel service, but it is a Christian service that we'll be doing. Does that answer your question?
And Clark, if I could add into that, one of the reasons we're starting some of these extra worship services like our homecoming worship is we realize that as Melissa said, students were no longer participating in chapel. And so we thought if we could do some special services throughout the year, that would have more impact along with the student-led chapel service.
So we have a question about our framing of both Melissa and you, Craig, used Christian as a defining term for our approach. And we also heard Dr. Benz talk quite a lot about other faith traditions and even engaging other faith traditions to help to provide that perspective. But how would you, and I'll give this to you, Craig, maybe, how would you define the Center for Faith and Culture as it relates to our grounding in Christianity, and how do we define that in relationship to other religions?
Sure, that's a great question. And I also noticed there was a question about our Baptist heritage. So, we, especially Brendon and Melissa, we all are aware that we come from, that William Jewell came from a Baptist heritage. And, we really want to honor that as much as we can. In fact, that's why our first partner that we joined in with was Second Baptist Church. We went to them immediately when we were starting our classes and said, we really want you to be a partner. That's why we're having our homecoming worship at Second Baptist. But we are, an ecumenical ministry. And so we see ourselves participating with different groups and different manifestations of the church, frankly. That's why, in fact, all of our partners, we have an Episcopalian partner, we have a Presbyterian partner, we have a Disciples of Christ partner, and I imagine that's going to continue to grow. We all we say that all of us are Christian ministers. We've all come from Christian traditions. We come from different Christian traditions. And that's how we approach faith. That's how we understand faith. I understand faith as someone who follows the life and death and resurrection of Jesus. Now, as a college, so we're very upfront about that, and that's the discipleship portion, especially when we deal with our students. That's the perspective we come from. That's the tradition we understand. But there's an academic part of this, and that is an interfaith part to understand different traditions, to approach it from an academic portion. So we've got kind of two sides of the house, and we will continue to approach the center from both of those, from an academic side and also then from a spiritual life side. So essentially we are an ecumenical ministry, and we see ourselves that way. We want to be open, but we also realize who we are, and we're comfortable with that. And so the other ones may want to jump in on that.
Well, Dr. Benz, you've got to answer this question from our good alum, Carol, who was a sociology major at Jewell. And so she asked this, that she's been puzzled about how culture can be understood in the absence of anthropology and sociology. Could you please address this gap at William Jewell and how the center will be helpful in closing that gap?
That's a great question. Well, so I'm a sociology major from Taylor University. And so that background itself informs some of my courses, including the course I discussed on power, tyranny, and the good life. The exploration of power, right, is a question of sociology, a relationship between people. So this is a good question. And I think my colleagues here and who are contributing to Sacred and Secular, they take a very interdisciplinary approach in their presentation of material. So, I mean, this could even kind of cross over with the earlier question about interfaith dialogue and faithfulness to a Christian tradition and yet pursuing and taking seriously in a global world, and this is something Miroslav Volf talks about quite a bit, especially in his book entitled Flourishing, in a global world, the need to be able to communicate and to understand humanity in the context of their own religious commitments. And so if vocation is a calling, which I believe it is in the Christian tradition in particular, then we are fulfilling our calling better when we better understand those religious backgrounds of the people whom we encounter. So for example, I alluded to this earlier. I have a friend who teaches at North Kansas City High School. She teaches English as a learning language, ELL. It's more commonly known as ESL. And in her class, she just received 20 Afghan refugees. And they're all Islam or Muslim, women and men. And because of her wide travels, she understands some of the cultural demands of her students. But there are other instructors who are not quite as informed as she is about not pairing, for example, girls with boys or men with women in these classroom projects, or taking seriously their request to have times of prayer in the afternoon. And so I think if we can be better teachers when we can interact with those religious backgrounds, and by being better teachers, we are better fulfilling our vocation, our Christian vocation, our Christian call to be teachers, if that makes sense. I wish I could have a dialogue with that questioner, because I'm sure it could be a long back and forth.
Well, and maybe this would be a simpler question to answer, which is, Mark asked, are we requiring a religion course of our students today in their curriculum? And if not, then how is the center addressing that?
The answer is yes, because every student must take at least one course from the sacred and secular category of our CTI curriculum. So briefly, our CTI curriculum, the first level includes the responsible self, to which Melissa and I referred earlier. And then the second level of the curriculum includes 4 categories. One is science and technology. The other is power and justice, culture and tradition, and sacred and secular. And depending on your major, you have to take a course from 3 of those categories. So if you're a biology major, you're exempt from science and technology. If you're a history major, you're exempt from power and justice. Since there is no longer a religion major on campus, no one is exempt from sacred and secular. So every student must take a course from that category.
So we have a question about if people know, and alums know a student who might want to participate in the program that's going to start in the fall of 23, and we heard the word scholarship. How do they get them in touch with you, and what kind of scholarships might be available, and what would it look like for a student to participate?
If someone is interested, they could contact any of us, contact the Center for Faith and Culture. I think there's a link on our website, and we will get in touch with that person. Our admissions team will also be aware of that. And so just give us your information, and we will definitely love to talk to those people.
And Craig, ideally, how many slots will be available? You said it was competitive.
Yeah, so we envision 12. We'd like to get 12 the first year. That's kind of a good small group size. So if we could get 12 the first year and then bring in 12 to 24 each year, we could see doing two groups a year possibly. That would be kind of our ideal, so that ultimately over a 4-year period we could have up to 100 students in that program. But next year, if we had 12 or 14, we would be thrilled to death.
Melissa, we haven't had this question tonight, but I've gotten it several times in the last few years from from alums, and just asking, is the spirit alive among our students on campus? And so you've only been on the campus a few weeks, but you've already described a lot of interaction with students. And so what's your evaluation? Do you think the spirit's working in their hearts on campus?
Oh, absolutely. I think that they are thirsty. They are thirsty for opportunity to engage their spiritual life and to grow. Even from my interview, I came on campus, I think in April, and met with 7 or 8 students during my interview. And even during then, they were expressing desire to go deeper into faith and to explore their spirituality more. So absolutely. And I, every time I have told a student or a group of students that the worship service is happening, very excited. Grant Stubbs gave me like a fist pump when I told them about it. So yes, they're very excited.
So we mentioned that there is a homecoming chapel service coming up. So that's coming up very soon. It's actually next week. It is a week from Thursday night. It is Thursday night, September 29th. So 1 week from this Thursday. It's a part of the grand homecoming celebration. We have our alumni awards dinner on Friday night, and we have the big homecoming celebration, the game, the tailgate. We're breaking ground on the link all on Saturday, October 1st. But the homecoming chapel is a brand new tradition that is being put on by the Center for Faith and Culture. And I love this idea. I hope it becomes that's still a tradition happening 100 years from now, because it's going to celebrate the connection that we have as a Jewell family. And it is going to take place at 7 p.m. at Second Baptist Church here in Liberty, and everyone is welcome. It will involve our concert choir. And if any of you were with us for opening convocation, I mean, that choir just really pierced people's souls. It was so good. They are amazing. And you'll get another chance to hear them next Thursday at Homecoming Chapel. But our desire is that for everyone associated and affiliated with Jewell, that we feel connected to one another. And we want this chapel service to remind us about our connection, and also to for us to remember the people that we've lost that have passed on over these last few years. And so we're going to have a special special service to remember those people. Their names will be printed in our program, and we're going to take some time to honor their memories and celebrate their lives. So I hope that you will join us. Craig, I will throw it back to you. There's a couple questions we haven't addressed, but we're about to run out of time. I think a lot of it's basically been answered. But there's a question about the Yale Center and their relationship with their religion department, and obviously, the religion department at Jewell closed a few years ago. How do you see your responsibility as a program at Jewell as it relates to religious life and the spiritual life as the campus, the community, and obviously for our students?
Well, it goes back to that. I think the earlier question of, is the spirit alive here? And from the minute I step foot, I can't. I've only been here 6 years and at Jewell, and I can't address where we I haven't been here through the whole history, but I can tell you that I know that the spirit is alive. And during pandemic, I mean, everything got really wonky and shut down in many ways, but there's such an energy here with our young people. This center, if you look at higher learning, traditional religion departments have struggled. It's not just Jewell; it is everywhere. And the reality is that we didn't have, very many, if any, majors or young people coming here that wanted to major in religion. And so, but we really do believe that this is a new opportunity, a new thing. You know, God does new things sometimes, and you know, out of something that dies, something new is born, and we believe in resurrection. And so, as a Christian, so I really think that what is happening here, it's similar to Yale, but it's going to be different. And again, we've worked with Miroslav Volf and the Yale Center. We know what they do. We're teaching courses similar to what they are, but we're going to have our own, I think, stamp on this, and we'll be faithful to our tradition. But we're also really you know, there were 100 students that were at this Pursue group. I really expect, I wouldn't be surprised if we had 100 students at our first worship service. We couldn't get 100 students at chapel when I first arrived here 5 years ago over a whole semester. So I really am excited about what this can do new and the opportunities before us. So stay tuned. There's going to be more to come, and we really would appreciate your support in this new venture.
So thanks, Craig and Brendon and Melissa. We are just really grateful that you've taken up the mantle and the leadership roles for the center. Greg reminds us that he is so thankful for this gift from Phil and Patty Love, and that's where we began tonight. And I want to send out my love to them for what they've started here, and an encouragement to you all to be involved. We want you to be involved in the center, and so thank you for being involved tonight, and continue your involvement, continue your questions. All of these leaders are available through email and phone. They want to for you to be a part of this effort, what we're doing at Jewell. And please join us next Thursday evening, Thursday the 29th, 7 p.m., Second Baptist Church, for our inaugural homecoming chapel. Thanks for being with us tonight, and good night, and may God bless you.